statement. That came after Musk spent hours and hours criticizing the sprawling bill on social media. He posted about it over 100 times throughout the day. The president-elect also threatened to support a primary opponent to any Republican who went against his wishes. So, with the bipartisan legislation now dead, Vance went to the Hill in an attempt to iron out a new deal ahead of tomorrow evening's deadline. As for what that plan may be, several sources tell NBC News that House Speaker Mike Johnson's team is now looking at a clean short-term bill that continues federal funding at current levels and could also include disaster relief funding and an extension of the important farm bill. After 5 hours of negotiations, Vance left with no deal in place, but said the talks are ongoing. Democrats, meanwhile, were outraged at the deal's stunning collapse. The White House released a statement last night that reads in part this way: triggering a damaging government shutdown would hurt families who are gathering to meet with their loved ones and endanger the basic services Americans, from veterans to Social Security recipients, rely on. A deal is a deal. Republicans should keep their word. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries squarely placed the blame on Republicans.
House Republicans will now own any harm that is visited upon the American people that results from a government shutdown or worse. An agreement is an agreement. It was bipartisan, and there is nothing more to say.
So before Trump announced his own opposition to the government funding bill, there was massive outcry from DOGE, or the new Department of Government Efficiency that's led by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy. The duo began a pressure campaign against the bill on social media Wednesday morning, with Ramaswamy providing his analysis. He said the measure was full of excessive spending, special interest giveaways, and pork barrel politics. He then called on Congress to vote no, and then released a video on TikTok to further highlight his position.
If you read the bill carefully, it contains pay raises for members of Congress, and I'm not making this up, an expansion of their federal health benefits. It contains all kinds of special interests and pork funding, including opening up a new stadium in Washington, D.C. It renews the Global Engagement Center, which is a key node of the censorship industrial complex. And the worst part is, they didn't want you to know about any of it, and that's why they made this a last-minute jam job.
Now, we should be clear here. The measure does not include funding for a new stadium in Washington, D.C. Rather, it transfers control of the site of the existing RFK Stadium simply to the city government for redevelopment, and it involves zero federal funds. As for Elon Musk, he spent the entire day trashing the funding bill, spreading misinformation about its content. For example, he incorrectly stated that the bill provided funding for bioweapons labs. He also called on his followers to reach out to the representatives and urge them to vote against the bill. Additionally, Musk also called on any Republican lawmaker who voted in favor of this bill to then be primaried. So the GOP uproar over the bill has House Speaker Mike Johnson suddenly on the hot seat just weeks before lawmakers are set to vote to potentially re-elect him to the speakership. So yesterday morning, Johnson revealed on Fox News that he is on a group text with DOGE leaders Musk and Ramaswamy, and claimed him at the time that they did not blame him for the deal, and agreed that negotiations simply put him in an impossible position. But some elected lawmakers who will be voting to determine whether or not Johnson actually gets to keep the speaker gavel in the next Congress next month then expressed disappointment over how the House leader negotiated the bipartisan funding measure.
Do you have confidence in Speaker Johnson staying on then?
Well, I don't know. I'm only one vote out of 220. Look, I think the Speaker could have handled this differently. At this point, I'm still supportive of the Speaker, but I will tell you that voices both inside the House Freedom Caucus and outside the Freedom Caucus have been very disappointed at what's happened this week.
And then Republican Congressman Troy Nehls of Texas dodged a question on whether he still supported the Speaker, but insisted the only way Johnson could be reelected would be if he gets help from Democrats across the aisle.
Do you think Johnson should stay the Speaker nominee?
Oh, it doesn't. Johnson's going to be the Speaker. He's going to get Democrats to support him. He's not going to be able to get him through just the Republicans. He's going to need Democrats to support him, or he'll never make Speaker. He's not going to.
Joining us now, the perfect person to provide us analysis on this, MSNBC political analyst Brendan Buck. He was communications and strategist and former aide to House Speakers Ryan and Boehner. Brendan, quite a day on the Hill, to say the least. So much to get to. The outsized influence of Elon Musk, suddenly an 11th hour about-face from Donald Trump, plunging the process into chaos, reminding us of his first term and perhaps undercutting the idea that this time around he'll be more organized and professional. But let's just start with the bottom line. Do you think a deal gets done by tomorrow night?
Yeah, probably. I think they have to get something done by the end of tomorrow. I have no idea what that looks like. It probably is a pretty full-scale retreat. I mean, look, Mike Johnson found himself in this situation, ironically, because he was trying to avoid all of this grief. As you noted, he has a speaker election coming up on January 3rd. And the idea here was he wanted to do something very simple. Just fund the government until March, throw in some disaster relief, and maybe, whatever extensions you absolutely have to do. But Republicans wouldn't vote for that on their own, so they had to turn to Democrats to provide some votes. And that's where Mike Johnson had to open up the store. And that's how all of this stuff got added to it, because, Democrats said, if we're going to bail you out once again, we're going to need something for the trouble. And he's found himself now needing Democrats, upsetting his own members, because he's loaded the thing up. And at the same time, he hasn't actually done anything to clear the decks for next year. We're only talking about funding the government for less than 3 weeks here. There's no debt limit attached to this. This was should have been the most simple thing to get out of town quickly and avoid all of this drama. And now Mike Johnson finds himself maybe not holding on to his job, and for really nothing to show for it.
Yeah, so Brandon, tell us a little bit more about your thoughts as to whether Johnson will be able to remain Speaker, but also you talk to us more about how this previews what could be just tumult and chaos again for Republicans next year with such slim margins in the House, and Donald Trump raising havoc.
Yeah, all of the dynamics that led to the debacle yesterday are still going to exist next year. You have a very small House majority. The reality that a lot of the things you want to do have to have 60 votes in the Senate, and that means you're going to have to negotiate with Democrats. Whether you're talking about funding the government again in March, whether you're talking about how to handle the debt limit, you're going to have to compromise. And there is this sense among Republicans that they have unified government and that they don't have to ever talk to Democrats again. And that's just not how this is going to work. And of course, we've always had Donald Trump out there one tweet away from blowing things up. I knew that experience very well when Speaker Ryan was working with Donald Trump. Now to have Elon Musk out there always one tweet away from blowing up anything you have to do, particularly somebody who is not particularly close to the process. At least Donald Trump had staff around him. Donald Trump was usually somewhat engaged in whatever we were doing back then. As you noted, Elon Musk was just firing off stuff that you kind of think you hear from random commenter on the internet who's only sort of semi-informed of what's even in a bill. If that's what members, and it seems like that's what they are, if members are looking to Elon Musk for direction on how to govern, they're never going to get off the ground on a lot of these things. So they'll have the potential to get stuff done. Certainly, they will be more productive than they have been recently. But until they realize that you don't get everything you want just because you have a tiny majority in the House, we're going to see this on repeat over and over again. And I have no idea if Mike Johnson's going to be Speaker at this point. It only takes 3 or 4 members to vote against him. And we're starting to see enough of those people be non-committal. He might get through, but it may be another situation where we're sitting around for days to figure out who it is.
Yeah, we'll have more on Musk's seeming co-presidency later in the show. But lastly and briefly, Brendan, just as this idea of the speakership, just whether it's Johnson or someone else, just paint a picture here of just the impossible job, the headaches that's going to come with that post, trying to get anything done next year.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I don't care really, frankly, who the speaker is. All of these problems are going to persist, whether it's Mike Johnson or Jim Jordan, the conservative leader, or Elon Musk himself, who frankly could be speaker if they wanted to make him speaker. You still have to face the realities of governing. You still have to do things in a bipartisan way. And there is a conservative ecosystem that will pounce, I should say, on anything that isn't pure, that isn't conservative. And when you are left with members who, frankly, don't want to hear that there are certain realities that you have to deal with, he's always going to catch grief. Whoever is in that chair is always just going to be running ahead, trying to stay one step ahead of people coming after him. It is it's always been an impossible position leading the House Republican Conference, but even more so now when you've got people like Musk and outside voices who are just going to jump down your throat at any moment. And it's not like Mike Johnson is somebody who has had like a long track record of goodwill. Most people don't even know who Mike Johnson is. So he's in a pretty precarious position here. But I think this is really just a coming attractions of what we're going to see a lot over the next couple of years.
Yeah, could not agree more. And we'll have much more on this later in the show. Brendan Buck, thank you as always. We appreciate it. Next up here, we'll shift gears and get you the latest on the suspect charged in connection with the killing of United Healthcare CEO. He could be returned to New York as soon as today. We'll go over what to expect as he's due to appear at an extradition hearing later this morning in Pennsylvania. Plus, how Congress is now responding to the recent wave of drone sightings across the East Coast. Those stories and a check on sports and weather when we come right back.
All these years, he's still my everyday hero. He's got prostate cancer now, and Erlita helps keep him going.
Erlita treats prostate cancer that has spread to other parts of the body and responds to testosterone-lowering treatment. In a clinical study, Erlita was shown to help men with prostate cancer live longer. Erlita helps lower PSA. Erlita may cause serious side effects, including heart or lung disease, stroke, or severe skin reactions, which can lead to death, falls, fractures, and seizure. Call your doctor right away and stop Erlita if you have chest pain, shortness of breath, numbness, weakness, severe rash, peeling, sores, and seizure. Avoid settings where loss of consciousness may cause serious harm. Erlita can cause harm to or loss of an unborn baby. Use birth control during and for 3 months after Erlita. Common side effects were joint pain, rash, feeling very tired, high blood pressure, hot flash, diarrhea, and reduced appetite or weight.
Keep your everyday hero going. Ask his doctor if Erlita is right for him.
You found it then?
Of course I did. Good boy.
At Crumble, we bake up new, delicious desserts every week. From decadent pies to scrumptious cakes, the possibilities are endless. And the best part is, there's always something for everyone. Our menu changes every single week, so there's always a fresh and delicious treat to discover. Check out the Crumble app for all the sweet details and treat yourself to something special.
At U-Haul, we know every family
Come on, guys.
moves at their own pace.
Is that heavy?
That's why we have U-Box.
Take that to the kitchen for me, okay?
We can store it
Excited about the new house?
or ship it,
Who's gonna get the biggest room?
how and when you
I
want
bet
it.
you are. That's awesome.
Reserve today at uhaul.com.
Every moment captured.